The latest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds is called 4.5 Vulcans. I actually talked about this episode over a year ago because they do this thing now with modern Star Trek where they release clips of a particular episode that they're filming about a year before the episode airs. They never used to do this back in the old days of Star Trek. It's just kind of odd to me. So the episode almost feels like an old one, but it's actually just the latest season 3 episode. Anyway, this episode demonstrates how the writers really don't understand the Vulcans as an alien race on Star Trek, which I have to say, that's a pretty big deal. It is a pretty big deal to be that unaware, to be that ignorant of something so important to Star Trek's mythology, to Star Trek's long-running lore. Because the Vulcans are an extremely important alien species, a major part of Star Trek. In this episode, 4 of the Enterprise crew, Pike, Uhura, Nurse Chapel, and La'an, are turned into Vulcans with a simple injection. It's a serum that basically transforms them in seconds. Just like how Spock became a human in the previous season, and we know how truly appalling that episode was. Like where Spock acted and sounded a lot like a Gen Z teenager. Anyway, instantaneously, Pike, Uhura, Nurse Chapel, and La'an are physically and mentally transformed into Vulcans. For some reason, even their hairstyles change to be in keeping with Vulcan customs and fashions. So they fall on the floor and they get up and their hairstyles have changed. Why and how? That's exactly like something from a cartoon. That's like what would happen in a cartoon. It's just insulting. Furthermore, their speech and behavior is perfectly Vulcan. How is that possible? They are suddenly emotionless, calm, rational, and logical. So this makes no sense whatsoever to someone who understands Vulcans as an alien race on Star Trek. Because, you see, it's been long established across various Star Trek shows down the years that the Vulcans were once a highly savage and violent race. They had intense emotions that they couldn't really fully control, and it nearly destroyed them. But Surik, the man who would eventually become the spiritual leader of the Vulcan race, he discovered another way, teaching emotional discipline and control, and using logic. The Vulcans changed and became the highly developed and enlightened society we would come to know in the franchise. But it took a long time. Time being the key word here. We've seen on Star Trek Enterprise, Voyager, and the original series that control of Vulcan emotions is a constant challenge. A Voyager episode called Gravity showed a young Tuvok undergoing emotional training with a Vulcan master. Captain Picard on Star Trek The Next Generation experienced a mind meld with Sarek, and he was totally overwhelmed by the power of the Vulcan emotions. There's just no way that the Enterprise crew on Strange New Worlds would suddenly possess the many years of required emotional discipline and training and control needed to act like Vulcans. If anything, they would be overwhelmed by their emotions, they could be violent, they would go crazy, it would just be too much for them. It's another example of the new Trek writers being unfamiliar or not caring enough about continuity to actually write proper Star Trek and understand the complexity of the characters and aliens in the Star Trek universe. And I have to say, it's frustrating as a fan to see this kind of stuff. And it's pretty basic. This is pretty basic stuff. If you get the Vulcans wrong to this degree, I don't think you should be writing Star Trek. So what comes out of this massive oversight is yet another gimmicky comedy episode from Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And I think there's been, as I've talked about this before, there's been way too many of them. Because even though various Star Trek shows have always had the odd light-hearted episode, They would typically do maybe 2 light-hearted episodes per season, but the seasons used to be 22 to 26 episodes long. So the light-hearted episodes were done pretty sparingly, it would have to be said. They were rare events, and I think also that made them kind of special in that respect, because they were rare. They were very occasional. But Strange New Worlds has about 3 comedy episodes per season, and the seasons are only 10 episodes long. So that's key, because the frequency is the biggest problem for me. There's too much joking around on that show. And they're not just light-hearted episodes either. They're straight up borderline self-aware parodies. Now next season, there will be an episode where the cast get turned into puppets. I mean, they've already had a musical episode, right? And so the musical episode, Subspace Rhapsody, was inspired by the Buffy the Vampire Slayer musical Once More with Feeling, and now they're doing a puppet episode, which of course is inspired by the Buffy spin-off Angel. So it seems that the writers are more familiar with the Buffy and Angel universe than they are with Star Trek. And so I think this is the reason why you get these complete misunderstandings, just misunderstandings of critical aspects of Star Trek lore and history. You get continuity breaks, out of character moments, and significant departures from canon, and the mythology is just turned into a source of comedy and written for the lols as opposed to telling clever and meaningful stories. If any creative changes are going to come about following the recent Skydance Paramount merger, they can't come soon enough. In my opinion, the franchise is not being best served by the people in charge at the moment, and a major course correction is needed. So this show, Strange New Worlds, much like Discovery, should be decanonized and split off as its own separate timeline. They need to bring in people who understand what made Star Trek work in the first place, people who intimately know the universe and the characters and the lore, and who understand that there are rules and guidelines and do's and don'ts when writing for a show like this. You have to work your story into an existing mythology. You have to respect the decades of world building that went before, because either continuity matters or Strange New Worlds is just a completely separate thing, and that it isn't really Star Trek, but it's a sci-fi show that's wearing a Star Trek skin suit. Because that's how it feels to me at this stage. But anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Hit that like button, subscribe for more, and remember to hit the notification bell to be notified of future updates on the channel. Take care, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye-bye.